Well, welcome back to Mr. Obsoletes Vintage Homesteading. Today we're introducing the Cushman Logging Company division of Mr. Obsoletes Vintage Homesteading. So, going to be doing a little work here today. What we have here is a 1963 Cushman Trailster made by the Cushman Motor Works, and you'll see that I have a Pioneer chainsaw. I think it's not steady there, but Pioneer chainsaw here, and instead of the usual McCulloch. And the reason for that is that Pioneer and Cushman were owned by the same major company, Outboard Marine Corporation. So this is how I combine different things in my hobby that kind of mesh together. Yeah, when you collect stuff, I mean, there's always people who are specific collectors. Like, you know, I only collect McCulloch chainsaws, or I only collect Stihl chainsaws, or whatever like that. But they're missing out on the real deal. I collect everything. So anyway, you know, they both have histories that go back together, and I've talked on a small engine video I did for work and play, and I talked about the Cushman engine and its development. So, but what we're going to be doing today, we get some logs to pull out and process and stuff, and so we'll cut them up with the Pioneer chainsaw, and we'll come back and talk a little bit more about the Cushman. So I'll be back shortly. Okay, well, let's get started here. Well, that came out good. These things are just covered with thorns, so that's why I didn't want to pull them out by hand or any other way. I'll get the axe and be right back. Ready for the Evansville. Nothing better than using a good vintage axe. Be back in a sec. Well, we're saving the branches for our next stump burnout. Got a good pile started here. So we'll be back here in a bit. Well, we're gonna be using the Logosol Smart Holder here to process it. These are really handy. Really quick and easy to set up. It's one of the very few modern devices I have, but the idea goes way back. Used to use them on farms. They weren't portable like this, but had the same idea, and they were usually made out of wood and old pieces of scrap metal and stuff for the teeth and the cutting parts on it. But anyway, so this is nice and portable, so we can come out to any place. Set up and keep cutting. I'm going to use this adjustment here for different thicknesses of logs, and this works really good from about 3" to 8". Anything bigger, it's a little bit hard on it and it doesn't fit real good, and smaller, it just moves around too much. So anyway, slide over, drop it down, give it a quick set there, and it's locked and ready for cutting. So I'll be right back when the saw's warmed up. Well, the saw's warmed up. This is a Pioneer P20, made in the 70s, 51cc, little homeowner saw. It's got a 1/4" chain on it and stuff, but it's a real good cutter. Not real fast, but really dependable. There's still tons of these around. They were really made very well. Anyway, well, as you can see, it cuts really good. This wood's pretty hard. That little 1/4" chain there has to work a bit, but you notice the saw doesn't really slow down when I'm cutting. Even though the chain speed is 7,500 RPM on the engine, and chain speed, it doesn't change a lot even when I'm cutting, because it's got torque. It doesn't have a lot of horsepower, but it doesn't need it either. So anyway, that's how the Cushman logging company works for Mr. Obsolete. We'll come over and talk more about the Cushman here in just a bit. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about the Cushman. You know, a lot of people ask me what my hobbies are. My main hobby is collecting everything with engines or motors in them or on them. And other than that, I have just a few other hobbies, but it's all inclusive. So the Cushman Husky engine here came out in 1922 in its first version. In late 20s, it took on this form here, and this was made clear through 1965 when they quit making scooters. Now this one they only made from 1960 to 1964. They sold the leftovers in 65 and 66. 65 was the actual last year of Cushman scooter production, but 36 to 65 is a pretty good run. This has a couple of really strange features. The suspension here on the front, it's what's called a leading link. And goes over the bumps pretty good, but what it does is it changes the angle of the wheel. And if you're in real rough ground like it was over there earlier, it changes it so it steers at different angles depending on the wheels at. It makes it kind of squirrely to ride. It wasn't one of the more successful trail scooters. The most successful one was Tote Goat out of Utah. But the thing that this one should have on it, which was an option and I've never been able to find it, it had a shock absorber kit you could put on there to dampen that movement, because it can be really bouncy out in the rough ground here. And this one has a what's called a speed kit on it. In the original configuration, it would do 12 miles an hour. Has a 2-speed gearbox, and the speed kit doubles it to 25 miles an hour, which this has on it and stuff. And this particular engine is the 8 horsepower. That's the largest flathead engine that Cushman made. They're about 40 cubic inch, but that engine is superb. I mean, it's got Timken roller bearings on the crankshaft for the main bearings. It's got a connecting rod bearing, has an oil pump in it, has stellite valves. It was an industrial engine originally and they never changed it. But the interesting thing about Cushman's is that virtually every part on them they made. The ignition system and spark plug are two things they didn't, and the carburetors, but they made their own chassis, they made their own tires, they made their own transmission, everything, the tank, everything. The headlight was an option, that was an aftermarket part too. But yeah, it's funny when you go to the Harley meets and stuff like that, and these guys come over talking about their American-made Harleys, and they have a transmission that's made in Taiwan, and the wheels are made in Taiwan, and the pistons come from Germany from the Moly Corporation, and the suspension comes from Japan from Showa. So they're not American at all. These are the most American-made two-wheeler ever made, because like I say, virtually every part in them was made in-house. Anyway, they made a lot of different interesting scooters and stuff, and we have a few others and stuff we'll share with you as time goes on. So there you go. We're going to be doing some more logging work too, but we're going to call it good for the day. So remember, collecting vintage engines is a great hobby, and all the things you can do with them. Vintage is always best. Well, not for some more trail riding here on the Cushman, but we wanted to come down here and check out our burn from our last video. You can see there's nothing left but a little bit of ash, and the roots I'll have to pull out with a tractor. But go back and watch our videos on burning. You might learn something. Be back after a bit with some trail riding. Well, there you can see, collecting old engines, vintage engines, is a great hobby. You can use it for work and play. Remember to go back and watch our 2 videos on engines. But it's a multifaceted hobby. If you like history, there's lots of history behind it. It's real satisfying making an old piece of junk like this usable again. Others can enjoy it with you and stuff. So anyway, we wanted to do some more logging the other day, pulling out some more trees, but we had a storm push us out, so we'll be doing another video before too long with this, pulling out some more trees. So remember, vintage engines are the best. It's a great hobby. You should be collecting them too, besides me.